Bona fide airline captain. He's trained people all over the world with crew resource management. He's held fear of flying courses for hundreds of people all over the world. He also happens to be knowledgeable on hypnosis, which helps. Those of you who are a member of the news group will finally be able to put a face to the name. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Captain Busby.
I answer to just about any other name that you'll talk to me about. I speak Scottish. I'll try and talk slowly for you so you understand me. As you can see, I do work in airlines. In fact, I got called out today as well for other reasons. But I do work a lot out of this area, other parts of England. Crew resource management, fear of flying. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. I think also the theme of today is more marketing, and I'll talk about that to you as well. First of all, a little bit about myself. I'm Scottish. I learned to fly when I was 15 years old, and that has been my primary career up till date. And I've only been playing with hypnosis for about 27 years. I've only just in the last 2 or 3 years gone into it on a more sort of semi-full-time basis, with the intention of going full-time in the next year or so. I've done various courses. The best, and I'm not saying this to advertise, but the best course so far has been Jonathan Royle's course for various reasons, which I'll talk about in a few minutes as we go through. Basically, as a flying instructor, as a skydiver, as an airline pilot, there are lots of mind tricks you give to people to calm them down, keep them from getting scared, and also to attract customers into a flying club to learn to fly and so on. Lots of psychology involved, lots of comforting involved. You know, you're not scared, you're not going to die, it's all nice, happy, and so on. When I did the Jonathan Royle course, when I looked at the course before I actually did the course, I realised that an awful lot of what Jonathan was actually mirroring the mind tricks that take years to develop through aviation. The crew resource management is a legal requirement. It was discovered that about 80% of plane crashes, I hate using the word plane crash, but they do happen sometimes. 80% of plane crashes were either caused by human error or were contributed by human error, either from the pilots, the cabin crew, or the management putting stress on the air crews to get a job done when they were over fatigued and so on. And if you ever watch the Hollywood movies on aviation, it's all tough and macho, you know, the tough guy. I can control the airplane, I can fly, I can do anything sort of thing, James Bond. And flying was a bit like that about 25 years ago in the airlines. It's not like that anymore. The Civil Aviation Authority, throughout other authorities throughout the world, and the International Civil Aviation Authority got together and did some research for several years. We were getting letters through our mailbox saying, have you done any mistakes in the last couple of months that you want to tell us about anonymously so we can build up a database? And throughout the whole world, pilots and air crews would say, yeah, I screwed up here, I screwed up here. Something went wrong. Is because I had an argument with somebody, or because I was tired, or because of this, that, the next thing. And eventually the authorities got together and said, hey, this is causing problems here. There's something we're not teaching people. It's a psychology exercise. And so they went to the bigger industries, the large industries like, for example, Shell, a whole lot of other companies said, what is it you teach your staff for teamwork? And they pulled it all in together and tried to find out a way of making it work in the cockpit. I could go into more detail about how it works in the cockpit, but it's probably more appropriate to say that crew resource management is just a different name for teamwork outside aviation. You can work it in lots of industries. But basically, as an example, you would get the tough, cantankerous old captain, the young, inexperienced co-pilot, and you'd get a problem, then you would fail, fall off, catch fire. And the tough pilot, yeah, it happens. Yeah. The tough pilot would say, okay, little boy, you just sit there and you read the comics, and I'm the tough guy, I'll fly the airplane. And what he was doing was taking too much workload on himself, and as a result, screwing up. But he had delusions of grandeur. He thought, I'm tough, I'm captain, I know what I'm doing, nothing's going to go wrong, and they would end up having a problem. And that happens in industry as well. You get your boss, you know, I'm the boss of them, I've got a big desk and a big office, and I know what I'm doing because I'm an accountant and something else and something else. And when a lot of the younger employees come up and say, look, we can see something obvious that you're doing wrong here, it's causing a problem with the industry, causing a problem with the company. And the bosses will say, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm the boss, just go away, I'll do what I'm best at, being boss. And I've got the calculator, I can work out the figure, see it works with the calculator, we're going to make profits. And what the calculator doesn't tell them is that they're actually annoying the employees, annoying the customers, and so on. I could categorise CRM as it's a massive subject. You can actually do a degree in it. I haven't gone that way for various reasons. Also, to teach CRM in aviation, you have to get approval from the authority. You can't just walk into an airline and say, hello, I'm going to teach you CRM. What you have to do is get approval from the airline, who then approach the Civil Aviation Authority and say, I want this person to teach us CRM because they're good at it. But what you can do is teach individuals who come along to you on a one-to-one basis saying, I think I'm bad at my job, I think I've got a problem with my job, what am I doing wrong? And then you can do that. I don't have the sources to start drawing things on the board, but I'll keep it very simple for you. And this is a very, very basic rule. It's very simple, and you can apply this to probably about 70%, maybe 80% of CRM problems. And if you think of three modes of the human mind, and it happens not just in aviation, but in any industry, but I'm going to use aviation as the example because that's the one I'm more familiar with. You get three modes. You've got child mode, adult mode, and parent mode. I'll let you write that down. And in the parent mode, you split that into two types. You've got nurturing parent and critical parent. Now here's how it works. Let's supposing you're in an aircraft, or you're just at work and you're working in the office, you're doing a good job, everything's going fine, there's no great hassle, everything's nice and happy. And you want to say, well, you know, I've got a few minutes to talk about something nice. Let's talk about football, girls, boys, television, anything. Then what you're doing is you're talking chit-chat, you're taking a little bit of time off to talk small talk, and that's child mode, because you're playing. You're playing with each other, you're just talking small talk. What's in the box tonight? What are you doing tomorrow? Come for a party afterwards. That's child mode. Child mode is the most relaxing mode to be in. And that's giving you a rest from the pressures of work. It's giving your brain a rest. And then something goes wrong. It might be a phone call from a client. It might be an engine going wrong in the airplane. It might be, you know, a fire alarm going off in the office. It could be anything. But something happens that has to be dealt with. There's absolutely no point in two of you sitting talking about football or girls or boys. You've got to deal with the problem. So what you have to do is jump up to adult mode. Go from child up to adult equally. And then split the roles. One of you say, okay, I'll go and get the fire extinguisher, you go and phone the fire brigade. Or in an airline, I'll say, okay, I'll get the checklist out and deal with the problem. You fly the aircraft and talk to your traffic control. In a more corporate business, it might be, you know, right, you go and look at the accounts for that business and you go and make phone calls to check that the accounts work. There's lots of ways you can apply it in lots of different industries, but you must both equally come up to adult mode. Now, when the problem is resolved and everything's fine again and you've sorted the problem out, it might take you a few seconds, it might take you a few minutes. But once the problem is resolved and everything's fine, you're working nicely again, you can take a breather, take a tea break, then you come back into child mode again and you save your resources for afterwards so you don't tire yourself out. If you're constantly spending, you know, 8 hours in the office every day thinking, oh, I've got problems, oh, I've got problems, you're going to be tired. So that at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, you're going to not be able to handle it very well. Now, into the parent mode side of things, it should be avoided. Some people, when you get a problem, again, I'm going to use airplanes as an example. You get a wee problem in the airplane, maybe an engine does something funny, or you get a false alarm. And usually the older or the more senior member of staff, the captain, the crew member, will accidentally, and I say accidentally carefully here, jump into parent mode. Parent mode being, sit there, do as you're told, I'm in boss, I'm in charge, do nothing. let me take control. And they become a single crew operator babysitting a child, because that forces the less senior member of staff into a corner. It's bad news. So then you're just taking on too much workload, and that's a recipe for disaster, whether it's a financial disaster or an aeroplane disaster. The other type of parent mode you can go into is what's called the caring pairing, where this happens with the best of intentions, where the more senior crew member says, okay, we've got a problem, but don't worry about it. You sit there and finish what you're doing. You finish your dinner, you finish your tea break. I'll deal with this, it's okay. And in fact, it's not okay, because they're still taking on far too much workload. And again, you're getting a split between the two people working together. However essential two people must work together, whether it's in an office, or driving a bus, or flying an aeroplane, or operating a ship, or some kind of machinery. Think of some of the industries in building sites, when you get somebody working a crane, you get somebody on the ground making sure that there's everything safe. They must work in coordination. And the only way they can do that is to jump between adult mode, where they're working together, when everything's going down, going nice and peacefully, they can sometimes slip down into child mode to save their resources for afterwards. But as soon as one of them says, I'm in charge, don't you interfere, then you've got a recipe for an accident, and it could be a tragic accident in terms of bodily harm, or it could just be a corporate accident in terms of financial disaster for the company. You must always work in harmony and try and stay on the same level as the person you're with. Now, here's where it starts to go wrong. It's when you've got your cantankerous boss saying, I'm in charge, you do as you're told, because I'm right and you're wrong. What you have to do as a responsible employee is find a way of dragging that boss from parent mode back down to adult mode. Now, how do you do that? And that's a really difficult one to sort out. But my suggestion would be, if you're going to be teaching this to people, is to tell whoever it is, they must, whenever you've got anything that has to be done, you must stay in adult mode. Nothing submissive, nothing dominant, adult mode. And if they stay there all the time, that forces your boss to come down to your level. And here's an example, and I'll use flying as an example again. You've got the cantankerous old captain who thinks he knows everything. You've got your young, experienced co-pilot who might not be experienced, but might actually still know the books very well, might know the aircraft systems very well, because he's just done the course recently. And you get a problem, and the captain's like, I know what I'm doing, you shut up, I'll deal with this. If the co-pilot stands up or sits up proudly and says, no, I'm not going to let you do that, I'm going to pull out the checklist anyway. And the captain says, no, you don't need to do that, I'm in charge, I know what I'm doing. As long as the co-pilot says, that's fine, you do what you're doing, but I'm going to double check that you're doing everything right. And if you don't, I'm going to nag you. And eventually the captain's going to have to get peace of mind by saying, yeah, all right, I'll do it just to keep you happy. So he'll come down to adult mode. And you can do that with any branch of industry. Like I say, it's a massive subject. And you can apply, you can think of lots and lots of situations where you apply this, but when you're teaching this to people, and there's lots of ways you can dress this up and put in lots of your own examples, because you all come from different industries as well. But if you can get the three basics, child mode is essential to go into to save your resources. I've had co-pilots who are full of energy, and they're full of enthusiasm, and they'll sit for the whole day, for 8 hours in that cockpit with the manuals out saying, oh Ian, do you know that in paragraph B, section 1, sentence number 5, there's a spelling mistake? I couldn't give a damn, But it's tiring when you get that all the time. And if you say to them, look, chill out, man, it's not that bad, look at the important bits and all that trivial stuff, you can do that at home, But some people are constantly intense, and it's just tiring. And at the end of the day, you're knackered. And then when you get a problem, you're too tired to deal with it. So get your clients, when they're in this corporate world, get them to jump between adult mode, child mode, when it's all going nice, when it's going wrong, adult mode again, when it's going nice, child mode. Get them to jump between the two. And that's a working harmony, and it keeps everyone just in the same even keel. And try and get them to identify themselves when they start saying, I'm right, you're wrong. Now there's a little bit in the training side of things in any company, when you've got new recruits being trained, then sometimes the person doing the training has to say, look, you know, I know you don't know what you're doing yet, don't worry, I'll help you, I'll teach you what you're doing, and so on. So a little bit of parent mode has to come in there sometimes. And obviously, when a young employee is doing something wrong and the more experienced boss has to say, sorry mate, you're doing that wrong, then yeah, there's ways of doing that. But even at that stage, if you can get your client, if they are in a management role, to say to them, look, there are ways that you can give criticism to your new employees, but do it in an adult mode. Rather than say, oh, you stupid boy, that's wrong. There's ways of saying, look mate, I'll tell you what, it's better if you do it this way. And you can give the criticism in adult mode, which keeps the trainee in adult mode, rather than, if you say that's wrong, you'll force them into child mode and you get a split. Keep them in adult mode as much as you can, until everything's going fine, and then rest in child mode for your tea break, whatever it is, talk about football, whatever. Bring up to adult mode. This happened in aviation, and there's much more to this, but more of the stuff that I've been training is more relevant to aeroplane flying, which I won't bore you with just now. When you see this in action, it came compulsory about 11 years ago in aviation, and the number of accidents has dropped remarkably. I think it was last year, for the first time in goodness knows when, there was not a fatality in a British registered aircraft anywhere in the world. In any large aircraft, any small aeroplane, there was not one single fatality last year. And that's a huge bonus from when, about 20 years ago, every year I knew somebody who's been killed in a plane crash somewhere. I've lost a lot of friends in plane crashes. Since 10, 11 years ago, that's thankfully seems to have stopped, or certainly gone down a bit. I have seen a massive difference in aircraft safety and the way people get on. There was one guy, his name was Oliver or something, huge guy. He was an extremely obnoxious character. I knew him about 10 years ago, and I couldn't stand him. No, everybody else hated him. Big Oliver, we called him. Huge, nasty, mean, obnoxious, just not a nice guy. And I left this company I was working for at the time. I went abroad. I went to the Falkland Islands. I came back, rejoined the company I was working with, a company called Gilead. I can mention their name because they don't exist anymore. And Gilead said, right Ian, now that you're back, we're now teaching CRM before it becomes compulsory. I said, well, that's nice. Who have you got teaching it? He said, oh, Big Oliver. I thought, oh my God. Anyway, I walked into this classroom, there's Big Oliver. I was like, oh, hi Ian, pleased to see you. You know, come on in. I thought, Oliver, you hate me. What are you doing being nice to me? You know, you can't stand the sight of me, you know. Oh, no, come on in. You know, chat. And everybody in that course, I knew from previous experience that he hated, and everybody hated him. But he was the nicest guy with this really good course. And he basically said what I've told you now, except he took an hour to say it because there's lots of things that were relevant to aviation, which I'm not going to bore you with. And I was sitting there thoroughly impressed, and people around me saying, wow, this is good stuff that's coming out of this guy, what's going on? And it came to the end of this hour speech, and he said, does any of you have any questions? And my question was, yes, Oliver. Since you've started teaching this CRM business, have you noticed any differences in the crew? And he said, yes, Ian, and the biggest difference was myself. He said, I didn't realise what a knobhead I was until I started teaching the subject. I now realise how much I've mellowed. Because you get a round of applause from everyone. And he was genuine, he wasn't acting it. He said, I just didn't realise. He said, I thought I was being helpful to young guys, young co-pilots, by criticising them when they got it wrong. I didn't realise I was forcing them into a corner. And that's the whole thing about CRM, is you might have to call it teamwork, you might have to call it some other name to attack whichever industry you're being into. But the people, whenever they're mentioned, you know, teamwork or team harmony or whatever you want to call it, they all think they're good at it. Everyone thinks they're brilliant at the subject. When they brought in CRM to aviation, and they were trying to decide what name to call it, and every pilot, including myself, every pilot said, I don't need that nonsense, don't need that. Until we started learning the courses, and we think, wow, yeah, this is actually, I have been doing that, and I have been lazy, or I have been, you know, in parent mode, or I've been in child mode too much, or something. And I've seen, you know, maybe 99% of pilots saying, wow, yeah, I can learn something from this. And not only from themselves, not only to look at themselves, but to help them identify what mode is this person that I'm with now. And here's an extreme example. You've got a young girl, I say young girl because I've seen this a few times, young girl coming in, she's very underconfident at the job, and she makes a mistake. A trivial mistake, but she thinks it's serious because she screwed up on her first day at work. And she wants them to burst into tears. So therefore she's in child mode. So what the employees have to do is pull her up into adult mode and say, no, you're doing okay, you made a mistake, doesn't matter, come on, let's move on from that. Leave that spilt cup there, leave that broken whatever it is, doesn't matter, come on, we've got a job to do here. And that pulls them into adult mode and makes them realise they've got a job to do rather than sit in the corner in tears. So it helps you identify what mode other people are in. And of course, you get some cantankerous old character coming in saying, oh, Robertson, or Busby, or whatever your name is, because I've got lots of different names. You know, your shoes aren't polished, and your hair's too long, whatever. And I just sit there and think, you're in parent mode, mate. I'm just going to stay where I am, pull you down to my level. And it takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes 10 minutes, but it works 99% of the time. Occasionally you'll get some blockhead that you just can't deal with. But they're a lost cause. But that's how crew resource management works in aviation. But the aviation industry have already stolen it from other industries, packaged it up to work with aeroplanes. All I'm saying here is that you can unpackage it, or you can get advice from other companies, but it's teamwork. The reason it's called crew resource management is one other thing I didn't mention. And again, this is more relevant to aeroplanes, but in industry you can find it as well. Let's supposing we were all a team now in some industry working some problem, and I've got a client phoning me up saying, oh, you know, that product you sold me last week is terrible, and I'm going to sue you and make your company go bankrupt, or I'm going to pull the contract on you, or whatever it is. And I think, oh, we're all going to go bust. Now I'm the guy in charge of the company thinking, how am I going to solve this problem? Well, actually, I'm not going to solve it. You're my team, you're going to solve it for me. So I would say to every employee I've got, saying, right, what do you think we should do about it? What do you think we should do about it? What do you think we should do about it? What do you think we should do about it? What information do you have that I don't have? What do you know about X, Y, Z? And within minutes, you'll get bombarded with information. I think, that's actually a better idea than the one I've got. And a lot of bosses will be embarrassed to say, oh, you know better than me. What they don't realise is that they'll actually get more respect from their employees if they actually follow their employees' advice. This is a big failing that bosses have. They're in this adult mode, like, I'm the boss, I know what I'm doing, or I should know what I'm doing, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know what I'm doing. And you've got to get this message across to bosses that if they just come down into adult mode, they'll actually be put into higher esteem from the people around them. And I've had to do that in an aeroplane, and I'm not embarrassed to say this. The number of times when something's gone wrong and I've said, oh shit, what's happened here? And I've grabbed the co-pilot and I said, look, you did the course in this aeroplane last week, I did this 2 years ago, so you've got the systems, you know the hydraulic system better than I do. What's going on here? And I've had a young co-pilot saying, well, if you put that valve on, put that valve off, switch that one. And sure enough, they're right. And I'll say, oh, okay, good, nice work. Anyone confirm the checklist? Yeah, sure, problem solved. So I actually rely very heavily on the young co-pilots, perhaps much more than I should, but I'm not embarrassed to admit that. So, what do you think we should do? Before I make a decision, what do you think we should do? And very often a co-pilot will say, sorry mate, I don't know, can you do it? But very often a young co-pilot will say, yeah, Ian, I think we should do X, Y, Z. And 9 times out of 10 they're right. And then I don't actually feel embarrassed at having asked the co-pilot, because I actually know that the co-pilot respects me for the fact that I've actually asked his opinion. So it's kind of reverse psychology. The problem is that until you get this into people's heads, that they actually get more respect by asking the most junior members of the staff for advice A lot of bosses will not accept that, and you've got to get that into them. But it's getting the resources that are available. You know, what resources? A young co-pilot's a resource. The young girl making the tea is a resource because she might have seen something. She might have a dad that owns some equipment that can save the day, or she might, you know, 10-year-old children are great resources because they know computers better than I ever will. You know, I've got a nephew of 17. I just phone him up and say, "What do you know about computers?" And he'll tell me anything I want to know about them. I can't do. So resources are valuable things, but they're quite often hidden in context. For years and years, airplanes were crashing because pilots flying them didn't realise they had an awful lot more information at their fingertips. There were lots of resources. There were things like, you know, weather reports from air traffic control that were too embarrassed to ask for. There was, you know, manuals on the airplane that they were too lazy to pull out and actually look, given them the information they needed to save the day. And you can apply that to lots of corporate industries as well. And that's really CRM in a nutshell. It's a much bigger subject than that. Like I say, most of the stuff I know is more geared up to flying, which is maybe not so much geared up to other industries. On the subject of flying, the fear of flying thing, I'll touch on that very, very briefly. There are two ways to cure people from fear of flying. One is to hypnotise them, and one is just to talk to them. I have only once ever had to actually hypnotise someone to get them out of fear of flying. Everyone else, you just talk to them, because most passengers, first of all, are scared of flying. About 80% of passengers are scared of flying. Maybe not quite double terrified, but scared, not keen on it, not happy with it, scared of the claustrophobic side of things, scared that they're going to have some nutter next to them, scared that they're going to be airsick. And this is an important thing with your high-flying, obnoxious businessmen. They're used to being in charge, being in control of people. They're on an airplane, and they might not be scared of the fact they're going to crash or not. What they're scared of the fact is they're going to throw up their dinner in the turbulence, and that's going to make them feel embarrassed. And that embarrassment, it makes them scared, because I don't want to be seen to be, you know. You get young stewardess walking about, 19 years old, confident, happy, cheerful, and here's this guy chucking his guts up. And he's going to be feeling very humiliated, especially if he's got people around him, like work colleagues. And he's scared that the rumour's going to be about saying, you know, old bossy boots, you know, threw his dinner up in the aeroplane. He's going to be humiliated. Their way of dealing with fear, whether it's fear of danger or fear of being humiliated or fear of claustrophobia, their way of dealing with fear is to go into parent mode. And they start doing, stewardess, stewardess, I want my dinner now, I want my tea now, I want my coffee now. So when you get really obnoxious passengers on an airplane, the chances are it's because they're actually very scared. And there's lots of ways of dealing with that, and the cabin crew usually know pretty much how to handle them. But if you're dealing with people who are coming up to you saying, I have a phobia of flying, what it actually means is, I'm not have a phobia, I'm just scared of flying. And what it usually means is, I'm not scared of crashing, I'm scared of all the other stuff that goes with it. I'm scared of not being in control, I'm scared of being airsick, I'm scared of being claustrophobic, I'm scared of having some sweaty fat person next to me BO, I'm scared of looking embarrassed, looking silly, and a few people are scared of actually crashing as well. The best way to deal with it, I would probably advise, rather than spend the whole day talking to you about the subject, Jonathan's got an email address and I'm on the news group as well, but I can give you pretty much any information that people ask about flying, and that usually cures it, because people come up with all kind of questions that they're embarrassed to ask. Whenever I talk about flying to any stranger in a pub or anywhere, 3 questions that come up. How much do you earn? Yeah. Can you pick stewardesses whenever you like them? And have you ever seen a UFO? That's the 3 questions I get all the time. And nobody ever asks about, you know, how does an airplane fly? How does it work? Because they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed to admit that they don't understand something that we take for granted nowadays. We all know how a car works. An airplane actually isn't that much different, to be honest. But people are scared to ask. And they're scared to ask in case it gives the impression that they're scared of flying, and that would be embarrassing for them. So they'll ask Other stuff like, oh, you must have lots of girls, you must have lots of money. I wish. You see my car outside. You know, you must see UFOs all the time. I'll get asked that all the time, because the answer is always, oh yeah. And if only they would sit down and ask me stuff like, what happens if an engine fails? What happens if it fails on takeoff? What happens if it fails on landing? What happens if your controls jam up? What happens if you get iced up? What happens if the runway's too short? What happens if a passenger's sitting in the wrong place? But because they don't actually know the technical things that go on an aeroplane, here's one example. Most people don't know this. Passengers sitting in the wrong seat is actually more dangerous than having an engine failure. An engine failure is easy. Passengers in the wrong seat, that makes the aeroplane just a pig to fly. You just can't fly, it's just horrible. And people don't realise that, and people come on and say, sorry sir, but you can't sit in that chair, you've got to sit in that chair down there. And they get quite annoyed, quite obnoxious. I demand to sit here because I've got leg room. Sorry mate, and you've got to find a polite way of saying to these passengers, you are a fat bastard, you cannot sit there. Yeah, it is. An aircraft like a seesaw, and to oversimplify things, wherever your wings are in the aeroplane is the pivot point. You've got margins. But when the aircraft is especially tail heavy, you're all sitting down the back, too far down the back. It really is a nightmare to fly. And it's not so bad in the cruise, but when you're at the slower speeds, takeoff and landing, when you've got quite big control movements required because the controls are quite sluggish, you can't afford to have that weight distribution wrong, especially if you get an engine failure. Because, not so much on something like a large Boeing 757, they've got so much power it doesn't matter, but some of the smaller aircrafts, and when I say small, I'm talking about 30-seat aircraft, they tend to be a bit underpowered with one engine out. And if you're having to apply extra control movement to compensate for that wrong weight distribution, you get an extra drag. And you've got an engine failure in takeoff, you're going to be struggling to actually climb away from the ground. But also, to fly an airplane, it's like drinking tea with your pinky up. You just sit, small movements in the controls. You get some sumo wrestler down the back of the aircraft. It's like, oh my god, it's like full control movement trying to keep the thing flying. It's really awful. I've been there. And you've got to, there's been one day with some coin collectors on board. And, they were quite normal looking people, but I didn't realise that their hand luggage weighed a ton. It was like full of coins. And I said, what have you got in these bags? Oh, bloody hell, we moved the bags up the front. And then on mail bags, I used to do the mail flights. We used to, I'm digressing a little bit now, but you get all the bags, they look evenly distributed, but 3 or 4 bags at the back will be carrying heavy parcels, the ones at the front will be light parcels. I've actually gone down during the flight, left the co-pilot in charge, go down during the flight and have to grab the heavy bags of mail, put them up the front just to make the aircraft balance better. But it's simple things like that. People say, oh my god, what happens if an engine fails? It doesn't matter. It's what happens when people are sitting in the wrong place that actually matters more. And other things go on. Yesterday I was coming into Heathrow. There's a place called Lambourne just to the northeast of London. And air traffic control said, I want you to go into the holding pattern just to give way to other aircraft that have priority. We had 3 passengers saying, what's going on? Is the pilot lost? And the stewardess said, no, we're just in a holding pattern. Well, the last aircraft I flew didn't go into a holding pattern, therefore the pilot must be lost. I'm not flying with this airline ever again. That happens. We don't get upset at it. But passengers and people who are scared of flying are often scared for the wrong reasons. That's all I'm saying. But rather than bore you today with all the technical stuff, it's better that you speak to him in the news group. So if you're not in the news group yet, you will be if you speak to Jonathan, and if not, he'll give you my email address anyway. But I can give you all the technical stuff that passengers are scared to ask, because it's embarrassing to ask. I don't want to pretend, I don't want you to know that I'm scared of flying, but what does happen if that engine fails? And I know that people say it's safe, but I don't believe you. And they ask all kind of funny wee questions, and they ask other questions like, do you drink alcohol before flights? Of course, the answer is always no. But there are rules about that as well. But that's usually your cure for fear of flying, is just allow them to ask as many, bombard you with the questions that they're scared to ask. What very often happens is that you can tell what questions they're going to ask, and so you can just answer them before they even ask them. But that's the fun, do you sleep with stewardesses? Do you earn lots of money? Do you see UFOs? That's the three that I get all the time. And then it's what happens if an engine fails? What happens if the wind drops? Well, nothing. What happens if a tyre bursts on the runway? I've had it happen. It blocks the runway until you get the aircraft towed off, but it's no big deal. And there's lots of other things. But the weight distribution is the one that they don't realise. And because when they're told on an airliner, you can't sit there, you must sit there, they think they're being badly treated. And that's another thing that annoys people about air travel, that they're so used to getting what they think is bad treatment because they're not allowed to sit where they want. I've got a friend, he works in security up in Aberdeen Airport, and he was telling me, he was out in the bar with him 2 weeks ago, after the flight, not before. And he was telling me he had a passenger who was carrying bottles of petrol on board in a bag. And he stopped him, he said, what are you doing? He said, well, he says, my car broke down and I had to get some petrol, but he said, I've got excess petrol, I don't want to waste it, so I'm just taking it home with me. He said, you can't carry bottles of petrol on board an aeroplane in plastic bottles as well. I said, well, why not? I've done it before in cars and things. Yeah, but not in airplanes. And he said, well, what happens, for example, if a passenger smokes? And his answer was, well, the passengers know that smoking is illegal, so therefore it's not going to happen. And that's the kind of way that they see things. With another passenger from Belfast to Liverpool, and 2 girls, and they missed their flight, and we said to them, look, there isn't a spare seat for you to get as far as Belfast to Liverpool, so the flight's full. But we can get you as far as the Isle of Man, and then there's a good chance that we can get you a connecting flight from Isle of Man to Liverpool, so you'll still get to Liverpool an hour or 2 later. Is that acceptable? And their answer was, that's okay, son. You just get me to the Isle of Man, I can get a taxi from there. Well, that's the kind of stuff. Now, there's nothing scary. You aren't scared of flying, but that's the kind of way that people think. And while it might be obvious to you and I, Isle of Man's an island, it's not obvious to other people who aren't familiar with the British Isles, The other thing that's quite funny is passengers come up to me saying, are you a pilot? Yes. Yes. This is at Gatwick Airport. And they pull out their ticket and say, well, I'm in Air Botswana, flight number 531, seat number 53F, and I want to move to 53B. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. But they have this sort of perspective of flying that anything can be solved by anyone, and why should you be treated badly by being told to sit in the wrong seat or go on a different flight or whatever. And that manifests itself as fear, because they just don't like flying because they're fed up getting messed about in their way of thinking. But it's like I say, it's actually easier if you just come across with, bombard me with the emails of every question that you ever get asked, and I'll hit back the way to explain it. When you actually get people who are terrified of flying, the best cure was always to get them in the cockpit, but we're not allowed to do that anymore since September 11th, unfortunately. So the second best cure is to send them to a flying club and make them take a flying lesson, because actually when you go into a Cessna 150 or a 152 with one engine and 3 or 4 controls, the basic fundamentals are the same as flying a 747. There's not actually that much difference, although there's really that much cockpit and it's much easier. The actual basics are the same. And you can actually take somebody to a Cessna, give them 3 or 4 hours flying lesson, put them in a 747 and they'll fly. They might not land it or do a takeoff, but they'll be able to actually fly it in the sky. The actual basics are the same. And that is actually usually enough to cure them of flying. The only bad thing that might happen is if they choose that flying lesson on a really bad, rough, gusty, horrible, windy day, then struggling a wee bit to get their confidence back. But like I said, bombard me with questions. If you go into the CRM stuff, you might have to call it team management or teamwork building or corporate coaching or some other name. Like I say, you will not be allowed to teach CRM to airlines because you have to be approved by the airline, and they won't touch you with a barge pole unless you've actually got flying experience and get the approval from the CAA and so on. But you can certainly get individuals and use that fundamental to actually go into corporate businesses and do the same thing. And I can give you more information on CRM, but in more detail. But like I say, it would be more aviation oriented to the stuff that I have. And also individuals, if you get young people training to be pilots, they'd be quite good targets for you as well, because you can give them a bit of a dose of CRM training, which will prepare them for actually getting that job interview. If they go to the job interview and say, I understand CRM, they'll actually help them with the interview technique, because while you've got the interviewer, your potential boss, and you're the new recruit, please sir, give me a job please, you can actually use that to bring your interviewee up to adult mode, so you can look at the new boss eye to eye and say, you will give me that job because I'm the best. And it works. So if you can get CRM training into them before they go for a job interview, whether it's for a flying job or for a corporate job, it helps. But you might have to give it a different name according to your client. Moving on just a wee bit, I think Jonathan's talking more about marketing stuff today, is that right? Sorry I'm late, by the way. I'm supposed to come earlier, but I forgot to change the clocks this morning. I completely forgot until anyway, marketing. I'm not a full-time hypnotist yet. I'm trying to become full-time. There's no secret about that. I do stage shows, I do therapy, and I'm basing almost all my training on Hypnotism, to what Jonathan has taught me. But I throw in more buzzbeisms as well, and they work quite well. I know very little about marketing until I met Jonathan. He taught me pretty much everything I know. But there's a few little bits that I've managed to use as well, thrown in. And I'll just go over this. Are there any of you here going to be doing stage? I mean, some of you are hypnotists, some of you are Reiki and a few other things. I'm not sure what all your backgrounds are. Are any of you going to be doing stage hypnotism at all? No, you're all pure therapy, yeah? Okay, well this will work at the same thing. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, all right. So it's all a similar sort of subject, stage, group, and so on. I'm still a little bit new to this side of it, but what I have done works very well. And I made a few mistakes, which I'll tell you about. First of all, I was in the Middle East for 3 years, and I did all the courses with Jonathan while I was in the Middle East, and I actually experimented with some of the people out there, which was fun. And then I nearly got myself killed, so I had to return to this country. That's another story. But when I moved to Yorkshire, and I'm thinking, right, I've done all the courses, and I'm just, I'm ready to hypnotise people. I want to go on stage, and I don't know anybody, and I don't know how to go up to people and say, have you got a problem? Can I hypnotise you? And I was starting to get a little bit of interest in pubs and clubs and so on to do stage stuff as well. But there was one night I was like, I saw that, I'm going to have to get a move on here. And it was ever so simple, bearing in mind that I just moved to this place in Yorkshire where I didn't know anybody. I thought, okay, I'll go to the pub. Where do you meet people? Go to the pub. Not the loud, disco pub, but the sort of quieter one with the coal fire and everything. Put on a shirt and tie, not the uniform, just a shirt and tie. And I sat in the bar, not sitting on a chair or a table, but actually propping up the bar with a non-alcoholic drink. Soda water and black currant. It works wonders, because everybody comes up to you and says, what the hell is that you're drinking? It's not beer, it's not cider, it's just this red thing with ice cubes. And it's not Coca-Cola. So they all say, what is that you're drinking? That's the conversation started. That's marketing. That's my version. And I've done it so many times by accident that I'm going to do it deliberately. And as you started the conversation, now usually question number 3 in a conversation is, what do you do for a living? So, what's that you're drinking? What's your name? What do you do for a living? Now, all my life, for 27 years or so, I've said pilot or flying instructor. Since last year, I've said I'm a hypnotist. Just see what the reaction is. And it's like, oh my God, you do that Paul McKenna stuff? Yeah. Thinking, here goes. I'm new to this. Last year. And it's funny for me because having spent 27 years getting the same questions about aviation, how do you see UFOs, have you seen Elvis and stuff, now as a hypnotist, and I don't mention the flying bit, I get the questions like, wow, can you make people do chicken noises? Can you stop people smoking? Can you stop people overweight? Can you do stress? Can you do everything else? Past life regression? Can you do? Of course, the answer is yeah. Yeah, of course I can. Yes, thinking, oh my God. And next minute their friends come in, Bob, this guy's a hypnotist. He'll stop you from smoking. Yeah, okay. And within, I would say within maybe 10 minutes of that first pub visit, I had 2 guys under for a smoking session there and then in the pub in front of everybody, in front of witnesses. And Jonathan made a comment to me a few months ago, you may or may not remember, that there was nobody more surprised in that pub as myself when that guy fell over. He's on the floor, rapid eye movement, thinking, oh my God, it works. So next minute, this other guy went under, and I got them up, and of course used the little bit of comedy in it as well. Not too much, but hand stuck to table, hand stuck to head. Got them stopped smoking, and they're still. I mean, that's now last June, and I spoke to them just a few days ago. They're still off cigarettes. They haven't touched one since. But they tell everybody else. 5 minutes, yeah. They tell everybody else this is how to stop smoking. And now I go to the pubs and clubs, and they all know me, and they're a hypno guy. Now I do lots of freebies because you have to in these places, but I hand out the cards. And when they phone me up saying, "Can you do that for smoking, weight loss? How much do you charge?" I charge money. Very basically, because I've got 5 minutes, 3 or 4 mistakes I've made. First mistake is I never advertise in newspapers now. It's a waste of time. Absolute waste. I've never had a phone call yet from a newspaper advert. I'm in Yellow Pages, waste of time. Unless you're going to spend money on a big box advert, maybe that'll work, I don't know. But I've got a small line advert, and it's just, but it was free, so what the hell. The other thing that I've discovered, not just with hypno, but with other things I've done when I've sold a car, when I've sold a house or anything else, the more interested people appear to be, the less interested they actually are. And here's how it works. They phone me up, and they say, "You're that hypnotist guy? Yeah. Can you stop me smoking?" "Yes." "How much do you charge?" And I'll say a number. And if they think that number, that price is too high, they don't want to embarrass themselves by admitting that they can't afford that, or they don't want to pay that. So what they do is they bullshit me by saying, "Oh, that's great, and can you do my sister as well, and my husband, and my nephew, and my brother, and my neighbour?" And I think, yeah, and that's their way of saying, "I don't want to pay this, but I'm trying to bullshit you to make you think that I'm still interested, because I'm going to be embarrassed if I say, sorry, I'm not interested." And they actually go a stage further than that by actually saying, "Oh, good, I'll make an appointment for you. How about tomorrow night at 6 o'clock? Which means I'm not going to turn up at 6 o'clock tomorrow night, but I'm just trying to find a polite way of hanging up the phone without embarrassing myself. So when if they phone up saying, "Hello, I'm phoning on behalf of my sister, my brother, and my nephew. I want to stop smoking. Can you do a session?" That's fine. But when they come out with that stuff after I've named the price, I never book them in because they never turn up. And I've left the phone on for them if they want to phone me, but they've never turned up again. So that's the mistake I've made. Is actually originally I was thinking, "Oh great, I've got a booking." Pound signs rolling in the eyes. They never turn up. The absolute best thing that I've done in marketing is simply carry lots and lots of business cards. At the moment, on average, for every 5 cards I hand out, I get 1 phone call, which is quite a good hit. And they're cheap. And you don't have to go to a big printer to get them made up in bulk. You can go to PC World or somewhere and get them cards, print them at the computer. Because then you can personalise them. You can get cards made for smoking therapy. You can get cards made for overweight therapy. You can get cards made for stress therapy. So if somebody says, "Oh, I want to stop smoking." There's that pocket there. There you go. And it says Captain Busby, smoking therapy specialist. Somebody comes along to me saying, like Pete, really fat, you're weak. And I want to do overweight therapy. I think, what pocket is that? Oh, this is the one that says weight specialist. There you go. And if somebody says to me, "I've got a few problems," then I've got a general card that I'll hang out. In fact, the ones I've got today are just general cards, just did a bit of everything. But there you go. So you've all got a card saying, wow, this guy's a specialist in exactly what I want to do. And that for me is the best marketing I've ever done. Jonathan's got an awful lot of tips in marketing which are excellent, but I've not yet used them. So I've not tried and tested them. I know they work, and I've spoken to people in the group who have used these methods and they work very well. I have not yet used these methods because of the circumstances I'm in. But for me, the business card is, the personal contact, the business card is, and the word of mouth is much better than spending money in adverts. That's the way I see it so far. I've yet to venture into new ground yet, and I've got a few more experiments to make on that. But so far, and I know I'm advertising here, so far I've followed Jonathan's advice in the book whenever I can, and it's worked. I've put in a few little techniques of my own, but he's got the courses, the techniques for the marketing and so on. And so far, that's the best you can go on at the moment. Personal contact, cards, and he's got lots of other wee tricks up his sleeve which I've yet to try, but I've been told they work pretty good with other people who have tried them. Tea break. Unless you get any questions, anybody?
Got any questions? We've got about 3 or 4 minutes.
3 or 4 minutes.
If anyone wants to got any questions.
And no, hypnosis doesn't make you here to win. Sorry, one question.
Do you use a free phone number?
No, I don't. I have considered that. I might do it someday. At the moment, I'm still very small time. All I'm doing is word of mouth, local stuff, so they phone me up. I'm trying to get my website optimised so it can be found in search engines a bit better. I'm hoping to hit the big, well, I am hitting the bigger theatres later on this year. I've got the 500-seat theatres booked up. And once I get into them, I'm wanting to go a bit bigger on the publicity side. So yeah, the free phone is an option. But at the moment... That's right. That's right. And the thing is, the number of phone calls I get, I mean, for every phone call I do get, maybe 50% of them will actually pay money. So yeah, free phone would be a good option. I just haven't done it yet. But yeah. But that's on my list of things that I should do.
You're right about word of mouth, because that's, people say to me, what do you do for a living? I say, I sort people's problems out here. What do you do? So, well, the nearest thing is I'm a hypnotist. Oh yeah, can you make people do anything? Oh yeah, I can totally control you, give me your credit card now, let me get a lap out of.
Yeah.
And then say, oh well, I was thinking about giving up smoke.
Uh-huh.
That's no problem, so.
Yeah. And I find even simple things, like, I mean, I've got a mathematical approach to what level of depth people go into when you're putting them under. But I find in a very, on a very shallow depth of trance, if that's the correct word to use, you get your eyes stuck shut, they've got the hand stuck there, and you haven't got time to do any more because the pub's about to close. But that is enough for people to say, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. That's enough for them to say, whoa, we saw you sticking my friend's hand to his head, and his eyes were stuck shut. And because the guy you're doing will be standing there going, oh, bloody hell, I can't move my hand, I can't open my eyes. And that's enough for them to say, wow, you know what you're doing. Okay, well, therefore, we know that you can do smoking and everything else. So yeah, word of mouth is by far the best, so far from what I can tell. Like I said, I am intending to go bigger later on this year. I've yet to get this man's advice as to how to do that. Now, he is helping me with that project. He knows exactly what I'm planning, what I'm doing, but I've still got a little bit more of experimenting with things like 0800 numbers and so on. Yeah. Any more? Not even one. Don't want to know what.
I was just wondering one thing about the flying.
Yeah.
You were saying obviously about the pilots. I thought planes, apart from landing and taking off, pretty much flew themselves.
They do. They do.
So you're sitting there and
My absolute record is a flight from Luton to Athens, and I actually flew the aircraft for 13 seconds, and the autopilot did everything else and landed it. That's my ultimate record. There's a four.
Sorry, is it actually true that there are some planes that in an emergency can actually land themselves?
Yeah, oh yeah, but it's not that straightforward. I mean, you've got auto-land on things like most jet airliners now have auto-land systems. I used to fly the Airbus 320s. They have auto-land systems where you can land in thick fog, it'll land itself and shut down its own engines. But there's things you've got to do as a pilot, like put the flaps down, put the gear down, otherwise it makes a horrible scraping noise on the ground. And you've got to tune in the frequency, otherwise it will lock onto the wrong airport. You know, there's lots of things you have to do. So you can't just fall asleep and let it land itself. You're actually quite busy pressing. You're actually, I wouldn't say you're flying the airplane, you're programming a computer to make the airplane land itself, but you've got to have your hands on doing things. The only thing you're not actually doing is physically driving it onto the ground. But it's got the auto throttle and it's got the automatic controls. But you're actually programming everything else right down to the last, well, to touchdown really.
Otherwise, the airplane will be coming into land onto blind school, some guy breaking it, but he sees
yeah.
jet coming into
No, I mean, basically, you've got to be wide awake right up to, I mean, if you're talking a worst case scenario where the pilot becomes ill, as most people ask that question as well, you actually have to be fully awake and fully in control of that aircraft right down to about the last 2 minutes. You can get it set up at 2 minutes before landing and you can sit back and take your hands off and it'll land itself. But yeah, you're always pressing buttons and things, otherwise it will go in the wrong direction. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of actually touching the controls, yeah, I mean, like I say, every airplane in the world, you must manually take it off the ground, actually pull back the controls, get it airborne. I put in the autopilot at 1,000 feet, which is only like 10 seconds later. But the Airbus, you just pull it up, gear up, autopilot on, hands off, and you'll have your hands off the rest of the flight until you actually land. But you'll be pressing buttons and things the whole way. So they're not that automatic. And yes, it is scary when you don't see the ground and you know it's about to touch you in a few seconds. Any others?
So do you land every plane on auto-land?
There's laws about what you must do. When you're doing an auto-land system, the pilots must do, I think it's one auto-land every month or something like that. But if you're only flying if you're doing long haul, you're only flying 3 or 4 days a month, then you don't actually land the aircraft that much. The aircraft I fly now doesn't have auto-land, so every landing for me is manual, which is actually more fun. So I must physically land the aircraft every single time, drive it onto the ground. But I mean, if the auto-land system fails, it's no big deal. If you're flying the bigger stuff, the autopilot fails, it's no big deal. You just drive it onto the ground. Pilots prefer it, to be honest. The passengers might not, make a harder landing, but it's more fun to fly than actually program it.
Time for Bruce, I think.
Yeah, sounds very good.
Right, well, nice one here.
Thank you. How's your work?
Bruce! Half 12 on the dot in here because we've